Hello, so in a couple of the previous videos we were looking at these displays that ran on cams. They're called flaps because they're literally flaps that show numbers and they count up. As the cam spins around it goes from 0, oh no, it goes from 1. I think it goes from 1 to 0, not 0 to 1, the video will be here. And it also has electrical connections on the top, so it knows where it is in that number. Well, these are from the Perry-Barr Greyhound Stadium. It's part of a machine called a totalisator, and it's basically a type of gambling that for greyhounds and horses and stuff. And I got hold of these recently from the Lucien Nunes Vaz collection, and he got hold of these in about 2010 with other parts of this machine called a totalisator from Perry-Barr Greyhound Stadium. We're going to look at a few other parts of this totalisator now. This setup had a lot of work done to it back in 1999 from the previous. I'm not sure who that is, the information is unclear, but there's a folder of schematics, but it is a little bit like trying to put a piece of puzzle together. So to start with, we need to understand what the actual gambling kind of algorithm is for totaliser gambling. I'm just wiggling up my chair. I'm not doing anything dodgy. There we go. So totaliser gambling is different to like a bookie gambling where the odds are fixed and the bookie fixes the odds. Totaliser gambling is sort of less risky for the betting agency because the money is actually, you can't win more than is actually being paid into the kind of bet on that day. There are no fixed odds. The odds change depending on how popular the bet is. This type of gambling has had quite a checkered past from what I understand. It's been banned and unbanned and things in different countries. But the way it goes is let's make a really small race. Let's imagine it's in a pub back garden and there's 3 rabbits that have got a race. There's a carrot that is on a piece of string and somebody's pulling it along and these rabbits are in a race. So for the first rabbit, 10 raffle tickets have been sold for £1 each between various people. I think Miss Miggins purchased 3 raffle tickets and then Tracy was being very reserved and only bought 1 raffle ticket just to get in the game a little bit. Well, it turns out rabbit number 1 wasn't a particularly popular choice. Rabbit number 2, another 10 tickets were sold for rabbit number 2, but rabbit number 3 had actually had shaved into its side go faster stripes. There was an obviously favoritism here because that sold 40 raffle tickets, the third rabbit. The third rabbit was definitely the crowd favorite. Well, this has figured out the odds. What we've got is 10 tickets plus 10 tickets plus 40 tickets. That's 600 tickets in the pool. That all gets added together. And then let's say, for instance, I don't know how, but the first rabbit has won the race. Well, this means the winnings, the 60 raffle tickets, well, they get all split up between the 10 tickets that are sold for the first rabbit. So what do? We do 10 divided by, we do 60 divided by 10, that ends up by 6. So actually every ticket that has been sold receives a dividend, gets back basically 6 times as much as they put in. Rabbit number 3 was very popular. There was 40 tickets sold and the pool is 60. Well, you're not going to get as much return. In fact, you get a 1.5 return because 60 divided by 40, 1.5. So for every ticket, you get a dividend of 1.5. So if you put £1 in, you got £1.50 back. That's how the betting works in totaliser gambling. You get bigger and bigger. So for instance, with a greyhound race, for instance, in the Perry-Barr Stadium thing, there's 6 greyhounds. So you're betting on one of the 6 greyhounds and whatever wins, and then the dividends are figured out via this kind of algorithm, and it's always updated. The crazy thing is the bets are always changing, the odds are changing, and this is all displayed on a board. Various different ways of how it's displayed on a board, obviously, and as time's gone on, there's been different boards, lots of different designs. The first type of totaliser boards and gambling machines were basically just people with chalkboards writing it, plopping it on. There was 1 number for each of the entries. Let's say it's horse racing, there's 16 horses, I don't know, and each of these horses have got a number underneath them of how much money has been put onto that horse to win. All these 16 numbers are added together to the top big number on the board. That is the pool, that is the overall number that the dividends of the winner of the race will be divided from. Obviously, the betting agency or whatever takes a cut of that, so the pool gets reduced by a percentage, I think. That's how it works. After that, there was these big buildings that in a way you could call them computers, because there's just a bunch of people who do basically simple jobs, like taking the bets from the people coming in, and then there's people adding it up, and then there's people up at the top literally changing the signs, flicking it all to make it all update as it goes. The odds of it are forever changing, and some of these display boards actually displayed the approximate odds on those different horses or greyhounds. The machine behind that is really interesting. It's basically just a triangle machine. We'll talk about it in a little bit, but it basically uses trigonometry to figure out the odds between the pool, the overall amount of money, and the actual money that is on that horse. And it kind of figures it out with the angle, with this angle up here. So the pool goes up, the horse money goes up, the odds go down because the angle's got smaller, and vice versa. It's a pretty mad machine. This has nothing to do with that. In fact, this is a question. If anybody has images or know about this Perry Barr Stadium totalizer machine, it would be great to see what actual configuration the board was, whether it just showed the amount over every greyhound for the race and the pool, or did it have odds? From what I'm seeing from these machines that we've got sitting about is, it didn't show the odds, but who knows? I'm not sure. I am not particularly up on the history of totalizators. I'm merely just trying to find out how to get this working so we can get it in the museum so people can enjoy get an idea of the sheer electromechanical marvel that is inside these machines. This right here is a control rack that has got a bunch of bits from the totalizator on it. It's not particularly clear how we're going to wire this together. It's a bit of a puzzle. On here is a pin matrix, basically of the output pins of all of these. So we've got to figure out which pin goes where for the other parts. We'll figure it out. It's not going to be super daunting. This is a relay box it says TIM on the back of it. TIM stands for ticket issuing machine. So this must be a control box for the ticket machine. The ticket input machine's got a socket here. We'll have a look at the ticket input machine. It's basically a ticket machine. That goes in there. We got this, which is a whole other kettle of fish. There's a lot of problems that come up, and we'll talk about them, but this is in essence a electromechanical multiplexer that is used to multiplex between various ticket machines. We'll talk about it as the videos go on, because there's a little bit to unpack. Also came with this is this rack as well. This is nothing to do with the actual totalizator. This is merely the clocking in for the Greyhound Stadium. So it's a telephone rentals machine. There's a master clock on the back, which is incomplete currently, waiting for the pendulum. So not going to go crazy looking at this, but it's basically got a bunch of relay boxes for the master clock. It's got this, which is basically uniselectors, pretty much the uniselector clock, but that counts up to a week, and you can figure stuff out. And there's also an extra box down here for, I'm not sure exactly what the function of that is, but we'll have a look into that. And then obviously the punch card clocking in thingamagoop. So now we have a vague understanding of the problems that we have to solve. Number one, we need to add up the ticket sales on a single, we're going to talk about greyhounds now, just for simplicity, because it's from a greyhound stadium. So we need to add up the tickets that have been sold on a single greyhound, but we also need to add up the tickets that have been sold for all of the greyhounds. Now this is actually, if you think about it, it's pretty simple. Like all you need to do is have 6 things that add the numbers together, and then another one that adds all of these together. It's basically that simple, but it's complicated because the issues that we have is there isn't just one ticket machine. Around a Greyhound Stadium, there will be multiple, because imagine if there was just one ticket person, well, you wouldn't be able to sell many tickets at once, so you'd want to sell more tickets than one ticket machine can offer. The issue is we need to see a live update of the numbers and the figures. So ideally, each of the greyhounds has an adding machine assigned to it, and only one adding machine for simplicity. The issue is if you've got ticket machines all running at once taking orders, how are these multiple ticket machines going to talk to a single adder for a single greyhound? Well, that's down to that multiplexer that we looked at, which spins around and basically quite quickly. Like it's the speed varies depending on the busyness, but from what I understand,
and it basically listens to each of the ticket machines that's assigned to it, and if the lever's been pulled down on the ticket machine, it means that it will latch there until the multiplexer runs around to it and says, oh, and then it frees it when it's taken the order from it. And if you think about how long a single sale of a bet is going to be, well, it's quite long when you think about it. However, that's not a bottleneck. It's just the sheer mass of ticket machines. Like some ticket machines of having researched totalisators in the past couple of weeks is quite a rabbit hole. Like you could be talking about over 100 ticket machines, which is ridiculous. This right here is the ticket machine. This is one of the ticket machines. Well, this whole setup that we've got hold of. There's a single ticket machine. This has got the top of it taken off, but you'll notice because this is for greyhounds, we've got place and win. These are two different types of bets. Place is basically if somebody wants a safer bet, you do a place and it gives you a reduced return based on if the greyhound comes first, second or third. So it actually gives you a half bet. So let's say you want to make a place bet on greyhound number 5. Greyhound number 5, pull it down, and then this is latched over, but there's a latch on it, but you push it over, gives you a ticket out of here. We'll look at this closer at a later date. There's also win. This is the dial, so you think greyhound 2 is going to win. You push it down, you pull it over, you do your thingamagoops. We'll figure this machine out specifically later on. And then over here is a twisting dial that tells you which race you're betting on. It's pretty cool. There's a big old nice facade on this thing, and it takes money, and we need to figure out exactly how the fudge it actually works, but I'm sure it's a lot simpler than it looks. Multiple arms on it, so it's a motor-driven multiplexer, basically, and this spins around and selects between, I'm assuming, well, we'll figure it out, because I've seen there's a lot of different types, and I haven't seen this specific type of totalisator in reference on anywhere on the internet. So it's a figuring out, but I'm assuming that each of these are possibly places for the ticket machines. There's multiple wipers, purely assuming for the place and win bets, but if you look on the internet, you'll see much simpler versions of these that were around before this kind of style. That take ticket machines, like 16 ticket machines at a time. You'll see that this is all a bit buggered, but we're going to take it baby steps. This machine, it's like washing the dishes. You don't look at the whole machine. You look at each pile of dishes one at a time. So the first thing we're going to look at in this video is a machine called an aggregator. The aggregator is basically an adding machine, and it's based on the technology that was developed by Mr. Julius, who invented a mechanism for adding that was initially intended for voting machines, but voting doesn't happen particularly often. He ended up finding another outlet for this machine, which was totalisator gambling. We've got in total 6 of these, so you can imagine 6 of them. Obviously, that's in a rack for 6, let's say 6 win bets. So there's 6 greyhounds. Each of them have one of these assigned to it for a winning bet. So in here, we've got these things which are really interesting. If you look closely, you'll actually see that there's differential gears in here. These are actually you could see these little bits right here as parallel to serial converters, because they can actually be it can actually receive multiple pieces of information at the same time and still add it all together. But we'll look at that more in detail, because if I'm honest, I'm doing this in a way that makes it better understand to me, so I can pick the pieces together, because there's not a massive amount of information out there on these things. Hence why I'm trying to do this video like this, because I'm just trying to show you my findings. But if anybody has more information or more pieces of this Perry-Barr Stadium totalisator, we're going to try and get it put together as much as we can for the display at the museum, so it can be used and shown to people. But the problem with this is it's completely gunked up. There's 6 of these aggregators, and they're God knows how long they haven't been used for, but the grease inside here has meant that it's completely seized. Like, you twist the motor, which is right here, and there's no movement whatsoever. So what we're going to do to describe how this works a bit better to myself and to you is we're going to put one back together, because I've taken one apart. You'll see a part here, just to kind of free it all up with a liberal use of freedom juice. So we've got this right here, which is it freed. I've taken the parts off, so there's various parts that I've removed, and then with a bunch of freedom juice, we've managed to get it kind of clear of any gunk and movement. As you can see, this is moving. These are, you may recognize if you look at other totalisators on the internet, this is the mechanism that adds the bets together. How big the bet is actually based on how big the teeth are. So I've got to remember which direction it moves. This cog is driven by something else, but it's got actually little ratchets on it, and there's relays underneath that are acting as solenoids as well, that actually push these little clasps on that unlock these. This is all driven by a clutch down here, so it only ever moves when there's signal. But if I push it forwards, if we actually flick one of these ratchets to let it go forwards, this lets it go forwards that amount of teeth. This one, if I flick it, it actually lets it go forwards a little bit. This one only lets it go forwards one, because look how many teeth there are. There's tons of teeth on there. Pressure on it. What if we flick two at the same time? My understanding is that's actually feels like it's done it. I mean, yeah, so it's adding together this signal. I'm yet to understand why there's specifically 3 of them. My understanding is more simultaneous use, but we'll figure it out as we're putting it together. I'm going to quickly do a bit of cleaning on this, and then we'll get back and we'll start putting it together. One thing I didn't mention about these is at the front there's actually numbers on them. You'll see that actually this part of the mechanism, this is one of the add-in parts that goes here. Well, there's a number wheel on the front, and then there's on the absolute front of the box there's little holes. So it's got a very vague description in the control room of the number. I'm assuming these numbers are directly connected via some other circuit we'll figure out in a bit to those flaps that we looked at earlier. But having an image of the actual tote board that this all related to would make it so much more clear of the problems that we're trying to solve here. So we're going to put the motor spindle on. I've put all of the screws, because they're all different lengths, back into it. So we'll do these. It's all flat point. Between this and the motor, there is a little plastic thingamagoop, a little bit of a pressure coupler, a little plastic coupler. I don't think that really needs any grease on it. So this will connect to the front of the motor. Actually, I'm not having much luck getting this to stick, so I'm going to put a little bit of grease on it, just to kind of squidge it onto the motor like that. Right, that's that on. I think smart is putting this in first. So as you can see, there's a bunch of connectors. Don't worry, I know where they all connect to. So these connectors connect to this, it looks like a uniselector, but it basically just shows you what number it's on. You'll notice actually on all the numbers, there's multiple numbers. Now, I seem to remember reading a bit ago that one rotation is 20 bets, but that looks like 40 bets. So I don't really know. This one's got one of these on the back as well. There's even an adder on the back of this one. So there's a lot of questions to be answered. I should have put gloves on, but it's too late now. So we've got one of the elliptical gears going. This is the motion it goes, but there's a ratchet one at the back. If we flick this, it actually just counts up 1. This is all being driven by this cog right here. Am I spinning it the wrong way? No, I'm spinning it the right way. So this is actually clamped in place, and there's a slip clutch on this, so that's constantly spinning. And then when this lifts up, which I assume is the carryover, because this is the biggest number, it flicks up and then can make it freely spin, so like that. And as you can see, the whole mechanism moves along at once if it lifts up. All of the fancy mechanicals are over this side, with these which are attached via various linkages, but these are very similar. They're just 100 and 1,000. This one's got this interesting little cam situation going on here, but This looks like it lines up to that, these cams right here, which are not prevalent on this, but this is probably a carryover cam. So as you can see, this lines up to this weird mechanism, which unlatches this one to let it count over to 1,000. Oh, there we go. Okay, so that was actually fiddly because we had to make sure these lined up onto this cam. It's running this way. That's flicking over for some reason. This one's obviously free running because we've got this other carryover cam that's exactly the same as that one. But as we're running over, if we're treating both of these to spin by the same shaft, it stops it and then it flicks over one. So when this flicks over, can you see that? I'm putting pressure on it. It pushes down, this cam tells the next one to carry over every time. This counts up 10. From the numbers on the front, I'm assuming it's got 4 rotations. It rotates, it rotates for every 40 times. So every quarter of the turn of this carries over to this. So this is the next number along. So we got 1, 10, 100, 1,000. So it can count up to 9,999, this machine. But this is slightly different. It's got an elliptical gear on the back for adding yet again. There's another slip clutch on the back of this. It's got the same carryover features, but it's just slightly different. And just got to remember which way it goes. Yes, so if I'm holding onto this back clutch, it's just carrying over very slowly. This is probably a number at a time. We take off the slip clutch. It's doing really quick. It's like in fast forwards. Oh yeah, it goes without saying, there's a heck of a lot of electrical contacts on this. This is the socket that's used. As you can notice, it is telecom yet again. Bit bent actually. We're going to have to bend those back. Hopefully that's going to be all right. Don't want to have to fix these. They're a bit of a pain in the butt to have to swap. Actually, they're not that bad to swap. It's just finding the spares. Luckily, we got some spares of these, but because they're just telecom. It's off-the-shelf telecom stuff with an interesting socket. But the cool thing is, well, there's only one socket on this demonstration setup of this. However, in one of the boxes that I found a bunch of these which look like they've been made for it, or the previous person who was fiddling with this possibly got these made or found them somewhere. But this is the socket for these. So that sits into there, and then bolted onto the back of it, right in the between, is the connectors, and they're just we can find these connectors from spare telephone exchange stuff. So if we want to plug in more than one of these, because we've only got one working socket, then it's possible in the future. I've messed up, and I should have put this on first before even. Let me just figure this out. This is going to drive all of the clutches and all of the drive things, and oh, bummer. Got to pull these out now again. This is driving that. I've just got to try and get the screws in, and yeah, we can carry on. The thing is, you can think of these adders very similar to differentials on a car. Like the differential axle of a car is basically an analog adding machine in a weird way, but you can put it that way. So if you hold on to one side, the other wheel will counteract it, and it adds it. So it's quite funny. It takes up the slack like a differential should. So so it's basically just a big car that can't drift. That's going on the bottom here. This is quite long. These gears couple the back one to the front as well. Fudge knows. I have a funny suspicion that these are actually working in parallel with the same additions, but there's a 66 number. Maybe this is 1966. I don't know. Motor number 26054. So the date of this stuff is very hard to describe, because I've been looking at the totalisators on the internet, and they're all quite old, and you can see this is slightly more finessed, but obviously it's before transistors, it's before computers, so there's still a lot of well, it's still a mechanical computer basically. So I've just put these on. Now we've got to carefully get this front part on. So this goes underneath that. This couples to these. Oh, fiddly. Get it all in the right spot. Flick this in, flick that in. Give it a nice push. Oh, the cogs aren't. The gears need to all line up. The gears aren't lining up on this one. There we go. Okay, I think we're good there. So I'm going to try and wiggle the screw in. So we're going to have to do this again for all 6 of these aggregators. That's the other thing about these is they're very hard-wearing machines, because some of these have, not this one, I don't know specifically this one, but they've been known to run for 40, 50 years, these machines, with limited wear. So that's the other thing. The way they're made is really, really like solid and hard wearing, and things have ran for many decades, and you know the wear is very small. Obviously I'll have maintenance and stuff, but I've just got to tighten up the front gear, and then we're going to turn on the motor. But it's running now, it's actually moving. It wasn't moving before, it was completely seized like the rest of them. So oh, we've got a random washer. Let's just pretend that wasn't there. Before they were motor driven, they used to be driven by weights along a common shaft, like a clockwork basically. And then that job got replaced by motors and slipping clutches. So it's actually moving now, it's actually working. Oh yeah, so you can see at the bottom it's spinning. Let's try and turn on a bet. Let's try and flick a... Oh, I did it! There was a bet. That's a bigger bet. Bigger bet, much bigger bet. Needs a bit of use, but it'll come unstuck. It's still a little bit sticky, but this is a very small bet. Let's try and see if the carryover works. I didn't see that. It doesn't look like the carryover works then. There's something not quite engaging on the second one. Oh no, there we go, it was just a bit stuck. So if you can see, when we count it over, this is counting over big, you can see it carries over, and then the cams get, it still needs a little bit of love, but it's coming. I think the rest of it's going to be from use. So this is the biggest bet. I'm flicking over the clasp. So usually there's a relay underneath here, you saw it earlier, and that relay basically pushes down, and there's a clasp literally on top of it. It's just a standard telecom relay, so it's a bit sticky. Oh, that's very sticky still. Oh, come on. Oh, that's sticky, that one. But you can see it's adding. We'll do the big ones anyway, just to get the carryover going. Oh, can get a little bit stuck. Okay, so it needs a little bit more love, but we're getting an idea of the function of it. There we go. Still got a bit of gunk, but I think we're in. Now we've got the front cover, which lines up on here. There's a few screws, but I'm not going to bother because I'm just going to pop it on. And if we look, make sure it lines up with the holes. Now I could see the numbers. Very small numbers. So this is what you'll see in the control room. Needs a bit of grease here and there, but it's counting. 6, 9. Oh no, that's counting up. So this is counting up a amount of 3. If I flick on the smaller one with more gears on the back, it's adding up 1 at a time. So this is 1 bet value. We'll figure out what the bet value is. This number is out of alignment. But it's working. We'll figure. So we need to align the wheel with actually what's going on over here, because I think when I was adjusting it, it was seized. So some of the wheels have slipped. Carry over to the end. So that's pretty cool. Yeah. Right, so I have a much better understanding of totalisators now. Obviously, I don't know it completely. There's still questions unanswered, so if you've noticed something that you know that is obvious that I do not yet know about these things, then please comment below. Also, if you have any spares of this style of totalisator, or any information of the Perry Bar Stadium totalisator, or any of the spares sitting in the shed of the Perry Bar Stadium totalisator, then please get in contact, because it would be cool just to kind of, yeah. And this won't be at the museum. This whole thing won't be on display at the museum for a little while yet. Got to still figure it all out and get it all pointed together. But if I can find some time, or if you've got a definite interest in this, please do get into contact, and I'll make sure they're there just to be looked at. To be honest, one of them might be set up with a couple of buttons when we figure out the pinouts, which won't actually be very hard. All you need is all we really need to show the function of this is actually a switch between the pins that energize one of these relays, and you've got it running, and maybe a timer for the motor. My understanding is also that maybe the motors, I don't know whether they were constantly running throughout the day or they were on and off running. I'm assuming they're constantly running, because this thing, whilst the betting's going on, is probably getting used quite regularly. So we've got a shelf of 6 of these, so there's 6 of them. This one's obviously now not seized, the rest of them are, so we'll see how it goes. But anyway, any more information, let us know. That is the aggregator, and there'll be more videos at some point on this machine and stuff like that to come. Anyway, have a lovely time.